Welcome, my name is Dawn Hayes. I am excited to practice with you today. We have a journey in mind that might be a little different than you're used to for yoga. But I promise it'll be something that gets you feeling and connected to your body in the way that's unique. And I hope you enjoy it. You're gonna need a blanket or a beach towel. If you have yoga blocks, grab those, and sometimes it's helpful to have a strap. If you are on carpet, you'll need paper plates. We're gonna do some sliding postures today. If you don't have paper plates, a cookie tray oftentimes works really well. If you're on wood floor, the blanket will be sufficient to do your sliding on. You won't need to find the cookie tray or the paper plates if you're on wood floors or some sort of hard surface floor. And you're gonna go ahead and start on your back in Shavasana. So whenever you're ready, lie down and bring your arms by your sides and have your legs extended. My teacher T.S. oftentimes says the first thing to do is to not do. And I think we oftentimes have a tendency when lying on the floor to fidget and fiddle a few times before we get settled, and that's welcome. But as you've made a few adjustments, give yourself permission to be relatively still and notice what happens when you pause. As you pause, sense into the contact between your shoulder blades and the earth. And notice the position of your right shoulder blade. Is it more towards your spine in comparison to your left shoulder blade? Is it closer to your ear or closer to your hip? Does one feel like it's flatter on the earth, while perhaps the other is a little bit more raised or kind of like on a ridge or an edge? As you soak in here, as you notice, allow your attention to wander into your body. First, observing the places that feel obvious. And then checking in with the spaces that you notice something a bit more subtle. When you're ready, bend your knees and press the soles of your feet to the floor. Exhale, scoop your tailbone towards your knees and feel your low back tip to the floor. Inhale, tilt your tailbone into the earth and feel your ribs arc a little up towards the sky. And try this a few more times. Exhale, scoop your tailbone towards your knees and feel low back press a bit towards the earth. Inhale, tilt your tailbone into the earth and feel your ribs arc up towards the ceiling. And try this a couple times. Feeling into the pulse, into the wave. As you finish the one you're on, walk your feet so they're about mat width apart. Inhale, tip both legs to the right. Exhale, return to center. Inhale, tip both legs to left. Exhale, return to center. Do this a few more times. Like windshield wipers, allowing your legs to turn from side to side. So there's a little rocking, a little spiral that happens. And then next time your knees are in the center, pause there for a moment and spread your fingers out wide on the floor. So it's like you're trying to bring each fingernail to touch the earth, and you're spreading the bones of your hands as wide as you can. Then slowly curl your fingers in like you're making a fist, and start to lift the fist towards your forearm, keeping your forearm on the floor. You'll feel something stretch on the back of your forearm. And then open the hands back up, spreading fingers wide, reaching tips of fingers and fingernails towards the floor. This time when you curl your fist, curl your thumb underneath and inside your fingers, wrapping your fingers around your thumb into that fist and curling the fist up towards your forearm. Spread fingers wide open again, back to the earth. Now keeping the fingers on the earth with the fingers wide, start to slide the thumb and the fingers to rotate a little bit towards the head side of your body. You won't go very far. And then do the opposite. Keeping the fingers on the floor, start to swoosh the hand so the pinky finger side of the hand starts to move a little bit closer to your feet. And try that a couple times, feeling into this really unique movement of your wrist. You'll shorten one side of your wrist as the other side widens, but by keeping the tips of your fingers on the floor, you're providing some challenge and you're making it harder for your body to create this movement. Then go ahead and scoop the fingers off the floor once again, but this time instead of curling them in towards a fist, keep the fingers extended and try to reach your fingertips to touch your forearms. So it kind of makes a little bit of a curling in, makes me think of a bird's beak, kind of. And then from here, with your fingers relaxed, arm relaxed, look to your right hand, spread the right fingers wide, press your thumb into the floor. And as you keep your thumb on the floor, flip the pinky side of your arm over the thumb side of your arm until the pinky finger starts to reach towards the floor overhead. And then flip it back. And do that a couple times. So there's this external rotation of the arm, and then back to the neutral. And the palm will start turned up towards the sky, and you'll push the thumb down to flip it up and over. After you've done that a few times with the right arm, do the same thing with the left arm. So you'll look towards left hand, thumb tips into the floor, pinky side of the arm flips over the thumb side of the arm. The thumb dips into the earth as you rotate through arm and shoulder. And then you can bring both arms into neutral. As you inhale, tip both knees to the left into the windshield wiper and look at your right hand and spin it as you just did. Exhale, come back to center. Inhale, both knees to right and spin left arm as you just did with knees to right. And do this a few times. You can kind of think of the arm as doing a corkscrew movement where it rotates as knees go opposite. So you give yourself a few rounds here to coordinate these movements, noticing the feeling of the spiral. And the next time you're in the neutral, pause there. Stretch your legs out, bring your arms by your sides, and drop your bones for a few moments. As you pause and check in, notice any sensations through arms and shoulders that are catching your attention. When you're ready, bend your knees, bring soles of feet to the floor. Interlace your fingers behind the back of your head. Inhale, press your elbows into the floor. Feel ribs arc up towards the sky, tailbone into the earth. Exhale, scoop and lift. Elbows up, head lifts, tailbone tucks towards your knees. Inhale, lower back down, elbows widen, but your ribs arc up towards the sky. Keep going. Feeling the action and the engagement, this wave-like pattern here. As you invite this wave-like pattern with the engagement of the lift, on your next round, add rotation, bringing both elbows towards one hip, lowering back to the center, and lift and twist both elbows towards other hip. Do that side to side a few times. As you check in with the rotation, push through your feet on the floor. As you finish the one you're on, return to the earth and pause for a couple seconds, coming into the savasana. When you're ready, bend your knees and roll onto your right side. As you come onto your right side, have your knees bent in front of you and stretch your top hand on the floor in front of you. You can use your right arm or a blanket for underneath your head, kind of like an embryo or fetal position. Now stretch your left arm up towards the ceiling and inhale. Exhale, twist your upper body to the floor behind you. Inhale, left arm back up towards the ceiling. Exhale, arm returns to the floor in front of you. And try this a couple times. Allowing this wave-like pattern of movement and breath. You can almost think of the arm as tracing a rainbow on the earth. And then next time the fingertips are in front of you, pause there. And now start to trace a circle with your arm on the floor overhead. And take the arm back behind you as you did just a moment ago. And keep going with a circle so that it sweeps down by your hip, over your legs, and back to the floor in front of you. And repeat that a couple more times, tracing the circle on the floor so it's not a shoulder movement on its own, it's your whole upper back and rib basket turning into a circle. So you'll rotate your chest towards the floor in front of you when the arm is in front. You'll turn your upper back to the floor behind you when the arm sweeps behind you. And try that a couple times. And then at some point in your circle, change directions. So it moves over your hip behind you and then overhead. Again, noticing if you have the tendency to move more from your shoulder and less from your spine. And how can you imagine that the hub of the wheel, the very center of your circle, is where your ribs meet your spine. The next time your arm is in front of you, pause there for a couple seconds. And then roll onto your back. As you roll onto your back, once again, extend your arms, your legs, drop your bones, and notice the difference between the two sides. As you sense here, notice any warmth or tingling. Sometimes the arm that I just moved feels bigger somehow. When you're ready, bend your knees, roll onto second side. As you come to the second side, have your knees tucked up towards your chest so you're in a bit of the fetal position. Start with your tippy fingers on the floor in front of you. As you inhale, sweep your arm up towards the ceiling and twist your upper back and the arm toward the floor behind you, looking at the hand as you move. Arm returns back to the ceiling and to the floor in front of you. And try that a couple times, inviting this sweeping circular pattern here. Like a rainbow you're tracing up towards the ceiling. This is a significantly easier movement compared to the other one. And so as you check in here, can you move as much as possible from ribs, from spine? The next time your tippy fingers are on the floor, start to trace a circle with your arm overhead. Take the arm behind you as upper back moves towards the floor. Sweep arm in front of you and do this a couple more times. Observing breath and movement. And imagining that the center of the movement, where it's beginning, is where your spine meets your ribs. There's a tendency to want to move from the shoulder joint itself because it can do some circle movements really pretty easily oftentimes. And there might be some places where there's little skips. Eventually change directions, making your circles the other way. Going as slow as it feels good to you today. As you finish the one you're on, return to the Shavasana. Arms by your sides, legs extend. Drop your bones. What's most obvious? What's more subtle? And from here, bend your knees, bring soles of feet to floor. Interlace fingers behind the back of your head once again. Press your elbows into the earth. Tilt tailbone into the earth, arc ribs. Exhale, lift upper back off the floor like an old-fashioned sit-up, but a little bit lower. Inhale, lower back to the earth. Lift and twist both elbows towards one hip, and now bring the knee to the outer elbow. Lower back down and switch side to side. Knee meeting outer elbow. Feeling what it's like to leave one foot on the floor and create a little bit of push. On the next round, lift both knees up at the same time. Lower feet to the floor on inhale. And do that a few times. Lifting both knees and feet up on exhale. Inhale, returning to floor. And repeating a few rounds. at the pace of your breath. On the next round, stay up and swoosh your knees and elbows opposite one another. So you're twisting your knees and your upper back. And then lower down, widen your elbows. Do that little back bend shape. When you're ready, extend your legs, drop your bones, check in for a moment. As you're ready, roll onto your belly. Try to keep your head relatively close to the floor. And as you rest your forehead on your hands, pause and settle for a moment. How does your breath feel different with your belly on the earth? Then from here, keep your right hand as a pillow under your head. And if it would be helpful to bring like a folded blanket to support the head and neck, you're welcome to do so. Take your left arm down by your side so your tippy fingers are on the floor. Now, with your palm lifted and tippy fingers on the floor, trace your arm out to the side so it moves towards height of shoulder and then up by your ear. And reverse that movement, sweeping arm out to the side and down by your hip. Try that again. Tippy fingers on the floor, arm sweeps out and up, arm sweeps out and down. If you could imagine you're doing a Surya Namaskar here, this is the same movement you would do with the arm. Now try the next one with your arm floating off the floor. So it's hovering in space as you move it up by your ear, and it's hovering in space as you move it back by your hip. Repeat that again. The next time your arm is by your side, bring the left hand under your forehead, bring your right arm by your waist, and do the same movement with your tippy fingers tracing the floor in that arc out to the side. This is the same movement that we would do in the Surya Namaskar, the sun salute. As you find this action of your shoulder a couple times, you could then experiment with reaching your arm and floating it above the earth in the same circular pattern. Now, if it feels good for head and neck and works on shoulders, bring both hands by your sides and do both arms at the same time, tippy fingers on the floor, sweeping back by your sides. This time, lift your head and your chest like you're doing Shalabhasana. Arms out to the side, sweep them up by your ears, and then sweep them back down by your waist. Try this a couple times, floating arms out to the sides, coming into this back bend, and then back by your waist. As you finish your last one, create a little bit more lift through the legs, and exhale, return to the earth, resting forehead on hands or turning head to one side. As you settle in to notice your breath again, how has the pattern and pace of your breath changed? When you're ready, take hands under shoulders. Inhale, lift into table. And fold your blanket up for downward facing dog. As you come into down dog, lift and lower your heels a few times. As you lift and lower your heels, feel the pumping of your ankles, the extension of your toes, and the fascia of soles of feet. And as you feel into the arms and the shoulders, can you grip your hands into the floor a little bit as you shift your hips side to side and keep your feet on the floor? Now keep your hips in the center and take a 1-inch step with your hand and walk it closer to your feet. And then do same thing with other hand. This could be a sliding movement where you slide your way on the sticky mat, hands very slowly walking towards your feet. I've been having a lot of fun with this move this week. It's been feeling really good in my shoulders and my upper back. As your hands get closer to your feet, checking in with how the weight distribution changes between hands and feet. And eventually start that sliding forward movement with your hands again. And let your head hang if you can. And notice if you were looking towards your hands, what's it like to look towards your feet? And eventually you'll end up back in the down dog. Now this time from your down dog, lift your hands way off the floor to take little steps, hands towards feet. So you'll bend your elbows, you'll use your shoulders a little differently to walk your hands towards your feet. You might imagine that you're pulling something up from the floor with your fingers. They draw together as you pull silk threads up from the floor. And then walk your hands back out. This time, look towards your thumbs and walk your way into a plank position. Hips between your heels and your crown of your head. As you pause in the plank, notice what you feel in your shoulders. When you're ready, knees to the floor, slow motion chaturanga for 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Inhale, cobra, lifting chest. Exhale, downward facing dog. In your downward facing dog, pause for a moment. Lift heels and small steps, walk your feet to meet your hands, starting to press your heels towards the floor as your feet walk in. As you take little steps, notice how long can you keep your hands firmly planted on the floor, or when is it helpful for them to start to lift? Eventually, feet come to hands, push through feet, reach for the ceiling. Exhale, arms by your sides. Take a breath for nothing. Inhale, reach your arms up for the sky. Exhale, hinge and fold forward. Inhale, lift halfway. And exhale, downward facing dog. Inhale, plank. Exhale, knees to the floor or straight legs, slow motion chaturanga. Inhale, cobra or up dog. Exhale, back to downward facing dog. Inhale, heels lift, look forward. Exhale, step or hop feet to meet hands. Inhale, lift halfway. Exhale, fold. Inhale, reach for the sky. Exhale, arms by your sides. Inhale, sweep up. Exhale, hinge and fold forward. Inhale, lift halfway. Exhale, downward facing dog. Inhale, plank. Slow motion chaturanga. Inhale, cobra or up dog. Exhale, back to downward facing dog. Inhale, heels lift. Exhale, step or hop feet to meet hands. Inhale, lift halfway. Exhale, fold. Inhale, reach for the sky. Exhale, arms by your sides. Do one more round. Inhale, sweep your arms up. Exhale, hinge and fold forward. Inhale, lift halfway. Exhale, downward facing dog. Inhale, plank. Exhale, slow motion chaturanga. Inhale, either up dog or cobra. Exhale, downward facing dog. From your down dog, inhale, lift heels, look forward. Exhale, step or hop feet to meet hands. Inhale, lift halfway. Exhale, fold. Inhale, reach for the sky. Exhale, arms by your sides. Pause. Take a breath for nothing. You can imagine this is a bit like the pause that you did in savasana earlier in your practice. When you're ready, roll up your sticky mat. We're going to do some of the blanket sliding today. So you'll find it helpful to have a block or two in addition to your blanket. As you take your blanket where the top of your mat just was, if you don't have a blanket, like let's say you're on carpet, then you'll use the paper plate on carpet and you'll do the sliding that way. Or a cookie tray works really well on carpet too instead of a paper plate. If you don't have blocks, a chair in front of you is sometimes useful, so you could do that if you want to have something for your hands in standing poses. We'll start with feet about hip distance apart, and inhale, lift into chair pose. Exhale, return to standing. And do this a few times. Inhale, chair. Exhale, return to standing. Combine the breath and the movement. So your breath begins a little bit before your movement does. Inhale, chair. Exhale, return to standing. Now, can you keep this combination of breath and movement where the breath begins a little bit before the movement does? From your chair pose, take your hands to your heart. Lean into your right foot and step your left foot on the blanket. As you stay moderately high up here, inhale, slide your left foot back behind you. Exhale, pull your foot in, almost like you're standing tall. We'll do that again. Inhale, slide your left foot back behind you. Exhale, pull the foot in and standing tall. This is involving some strong engagement of the leg muscles. On the next round, if you want to make it a little bit more challenging, find the front leg in the lunge position, keep it bent, and bring the back leg in almost like you're coming into chair, and then slide it behind you. So again, the front leg stays bent in lunge, almost like chair pose, back knee slides in to meet it. You can do 2 or maybe 3 of those. In general, my quadricep starts to talk to me when I do those. So when you're ready, you'll come up to standing, take a breath for nothing, and we'll do the second side. Shift your way into chair pose. Bring more weight onto your left foot. Step right foot on blanket. Inhale, slide the foot back behind you. Exhale, pull it forward, standing tall. Repeat. Slide the foot behind you. Pull it forward, standing tall. Round 3, sliding back, pulling in. Now you can repeat as many of those as you want, or you can experiment with keeping your front leg in the lunge position and slide the back leg up to meet it like you're in chair pose. And repeat that 2 to 3 times if it's working for you. If your knee's unhappy, then don't go as low and or come all the way up to the standing in between instead of staying low with the front leg. As you finish your last one, come up to standing, pause, check in. We're going to do another round, but we're going to add a little twisting to this. So bend your knees, take the feet to the floor so the weight is on your right foot, and you lift your left foot up. Slide left foot onto the blanket. Now bring your left hand to the block or chair or step stool and slide your left foot back behind you. Have your right hand on your hip and twist your right shoulder over your left. Now make a fist with your right hand or pick up the block with your right hand and make some circles like you're swimming. These will be like the circles you did on the floor a little while ago, where your chest turns up as the arm lifts up and the chest turns towards the floor as your arm sweeps towards the floor. Now notice your back foot is going to want to slide back behind you. Use some sense of connection to strength to keep it from sliding by pulling it a little bit forward. At some point, you'll change directions with your circles. Keep that feeling of pulling your back foot in, which draws your left thigh and your belly into a strong dynamic, which is a technical term. When you're ready, block comes back to the floor, pull your foot in, and stand tall. Whew. Second side. When you're ready, start in the chair pose. Take your right foot to the blanket, right hand to the block, slide your right foot back behind you. So now you're in the revolved high lunge. Notice how that back foot could go and go and go and go and go, and you're gonna prevent it. Optional, top arm up towards the sky, either with the block or without. Swim some circles here in space, making sure you don't knock anything over. Go as slow as you can go here, pretending like your block weighs 5 pounds. Or imagine it weighs 10 pounds. And see what that's like. Remembering that the circle is not just a shoulder circle, but is your whole torso spinning. Notice if your back foot has started to slide behind you again, and keep pulling it in. At some point, change directions with your circle and feel into that pattern of movement. It can be really helpful here to squeeze the block as if it was a rubber ball. It'll improve your grip strength with your fingers, but also ask your shoulders to work a little differently. Bring the block to the floor, pull your back foot in, step to the earth, stand tall. Whew. So in class yesterday, we did that with canned goods instead of the block. So it added a little bit of extra weight, which was really fun. So when you're ready, you can set your blanket to the side and then go ahead and roll out your sticky mat. We're going to come back to sticky mat action. You might find it helpful to have your blocks nearby. Inhale, chair pose. Exhale, fold forward, Uttanasana. Inhale, lift halfway. And exhale, back to downward facing dog. Optional vinyasa or any combination of stillness and movement. Some days I really find it helpful to do cat-cow. Other days I might do malasana or child's pose. When you're ready, we'll meet in downward facing dog. Inhale, reach your right leg up towards the sky. Exhale, step your right foot forward between your hands. Pick up your blocks. If you have two, great. If you only have one, no big deal. Inhale, reach your arms up, extend them for the sky. Now, if you have one block, what you'll do, I'll turn towards the camera, is you'll lift arms up, you'll take your block overhead, you'll pass it from one hand to the other, and then you'll bring it behind your back, and you'll pass it again. And then the next time it's overhead, you change directions, so that each time it comes overhead, you change directions. If you have two blocks, then what you do is you bring your blocks to touch overhead and touch back behind you. All right, so it's up to you. Gives you a little something to distract you from the fact that your legs are working, but still work your legs with intention and with attention. The next time the block is behind you, if you have two, push them together. If you have one, pull it apart. On your next exhale, hands to the floor, downward facing dog. Optional vinyasa or any combination of stillness and movement. We'll meet in the downward facing dog. Inhale, reach your left leg up towards the ceiling. Exhale, step forward, left foot between your hands. Inhale, lift your torso, arms by your ears. And go ahead and grab the blocks or block, as the case may be, and start to move your arms. If you're using one block, each time it's overhead, change directions with your circles. If you're using two blocks, you can tap them together and then pull them apart. Noticing the feeling of moving your arms in space. And notice how sometimes the block is not quite where you think it's going to be when it's behind you. The next time your arms are behind you, pause there. If you have one block, try to pull it apart. If you have two blocks, try to push them together. Notice what you find in the shoulders. On your exhale, back to downward facing dog. Inhale to plank. Exhale, chaturanga or knees, chest, and chin. Inhale, cobra or up dog. And exhale back to downward facing dog. And pause for a moment. Check in with your breath. From your downward facing dog, inhale, lift your heels, look forward. Exhale, step or hop feet to meet hands. Inhale, lift halfway. Exhale, fold. Inhale, reach for the sky. Exhale, arms by your sides. Pause, take a breath for nothing. Checking in with what you're finding to be obvious. Notice what's more subtle. Inhale, chair pose. Exhale, fold forward. Inhale, lift halfway. Exhale, downward facing dog. Optional vinyasa, or pause for a moment in your downward facing dog. From your downward facing dog, inhale, lift your right leg up towards the sky. Exhale, step right foot forward for warrior two. Ground your back heel, lift your torso, arms by your ears. Pause and take a few breaths. Could you dig a little deeper into your right heel? When you're ready, tip your right forearm to the right thigh. Take your left arm and sweep it from down by your hip to the floor in front of you and then up by your ear. Notice what that feels like. Reverse that movement. Then take your arm and sweep it up towards the ceiling and towards your ear. Notice what that feels like. Reverse that. Repeat each option once more. Top arm parallel to the floor to come by your ear. Top arm up towards the ceiling to come by your ear. One might feel better, but it could be helpful to be able to try both. Now take your top hand to your hip. Look to the floor. Walk your back foot in. We're going into a half moon. So feel free to bring a block underneath your hand as you lift your back foot off the floor and balance on your front foot. As you press into that front foot, reach back through the lifted heel. Connect to the bones of your standing leg. Can you grip your big toe of your right foot into the floor? When you're ready, bend your front knee. Slowly bring the big toe of the back foot to touch the floor and then lift back up. Try that again. Bend your front knee. Bring the big toe of your back foot to touch the floor. Lift back up. One more time. Bend your front knee. Big toe touches the earth. Lift back up. Now in super slow motion, step back to your side angle. And exhale, downward facing dog. Optional vinyasa, checking in with the difference between the two sides. You can do any other combination of movement and stillness that works well for you this evening. When you're ready, we'll meet in downward facing dog. And we'll do second side. Inhale, left leg up towards the ceiling. Exhale, step forward, left foot between your hands for warrior two. Ground your back heel, lift your torso up. Pause for a moment in the warrior two. Push down more into your left heel. Feeling the expansion of your arms away from your body, which is something you've been exploring a lot in the practice today. Exhale, tip into side angle. Now the first option, your hand starts by your hip and you sweep the arm parallel to the floor to bring your arm by your ear. And reverse that. Now flip palm up towards the ceiling. Sweep arm up towards the ceiling. As you create that arc, palm turns towards the floor. And notice, is one of these easier for this shoulder testing them both out. And if you can't do one of them, where do you feel like it catches or gets stuck? And what could we work with to help you find that motion, that movement? Next time you're in the side angle, pause there. Bring your top hand to your hip, look to the floor. Walk your back foot in as you lift your back foot into the Ardha Chandrasana, the half moon. Pushing firmly into the architecture of your bones on that standing leg. Could you find the center of your standing heel? Can you grip the big toe of your standing foot into the floor as you out through the lifted heel? Again, that's a fun noise to make. You can try it at home if you like. When you're ready, with the big toe reaching for the floor, bend your front leg, lightly tap the back foot down, and push to reach your back leg up towards the sky. It's almost like you're coming into chair pose with the standing leg, even though the hips stay out to the sides. And it's a lot of work on that standing leg to repeat this slow, deliberate action a few times. After you've done 3 in and out, you'll lower on the 4th one back to the side angle. And exhale, downward facing dog. Checking in. What do you feel in the hips? That's a long series on one side, perhaps. And what would feel good for you to go to next? Would it be a child's pose, malasana, the squatting position? Would it be a vinyasa? What does your body ask for? As you finish your journey, we'll return to the downward facing dog. From downward facing dog, lift heels, look forward. Step or hop your feet to meet your hands. Inhale, lift halfway. Exhale, fold. Push through your feet. Inhale, reach for the sky. Exhale, arms by your sides. And pause. Take a breath for nothing. I like to do a little twisting. So I'll turn to face you. Bring your palms together and have the feet about hip distance apart to start. As you bend your knees, come into the chair pose. Now bring your right elbow inside your right knee. So your elbow is between your knees. You could even bring the knees to squeeze your elbow. As you squeeze the knees to the elbow, turn your heart as if you can turn it more towards your left elbow, away from your knees. Noticing what that feels like. Return to center. We'll do the second side. Bending knees, hook left elbow inside left knee, possibly even bringing feet close enough that you could squeeze the knees together and have the elbow between your knees. As the legs hug to the midline, what do you feel deep in your belly? And as your elbow is in that space between your knees, can you feel it push down to help you turn your chest up towards your right elbow? And then return to center, come up to standing. So for the next round, I want to vary it a little bit. Now you'll bring your inner legs to touch, so with the legs. Take your left hand to your left thigh, right arm up towards the ceiling. Now, hook and twist as you bend your knees, elbow to the outer opposite knee. So as you take elbow to outer opposite knee, still squeezing the knees together like you did a moment ago. Inhale back to center. And second side. Bending knees, scoop, elbow to outer opposite knee. Feeling how this changes where the twist happens, but you're still squeezing the knees together. And then slowly return to center. Whew. And you can go ahead and bring your arms down. So here's where there will be another blanket sliding situation. So you'll find it helpful to have your mat off to the side. And I'll do a demo of this. So if you're on wood floors and you have blanket, I'll show you that first. If you're on carpet, you're going to do it a tiny bit differently, but it'll be very similar. So if you're on wood floors, you're going to set yourself up so you're kneeling on your blanket and you have blanket underneath you. And then as you just did, you'll take one arm up and you'll sweep both hands to outside of one leg. So there's a twist and a turn. Then you'll push into your hands, and with the sliding surface of the blanket, you'll turn your knees outside the opposite arm. Making sense? And then you'll do that again, where you go outside opposite knee and you turn. And you can keep doing that spinning thing. So now if you're on carpet and what you have is paper plates, you take your paper plates on the carpet, your legs will stay in place, but you're going to push the paper plates around to the other side. And then you'll go back and forth like that a few times. So you're still getting the twisting resistance. And with the paper plates, you want to try to push down and create as much resistance as you can. Now, as you've been spinning on your blanket here, make sure you go both directions. So you want to make sure you turn your knees one way, and then you turn your knees the other way, if that makes sense. So as you find the spinning, you'll turn one side, and then you can keep your hands where they are and spin your knees back. And you can do that back and forth a few times. Notice what that feels like in your belly. Hopefully dinner is after this and not before. And then as you finish that, I think that's probably good. Yeah? What do you think? If you want to do more, you can always do more. Okay, so from here, you're going to go ahead and take your sticky mat and unroll it again. And as you come to this sticky mat, you will start as you did, but now instead of being shins on the floor, balance on the balls of your feet. Turn and scoop both hands to outside of one leg. Now, if you so choose, make a shelf. Hook your elbows to your outer thigh and hip and start to tip your way forward. So as you tip your way forward, it's like a seesaw. You offer your heart and your head to the abyss, almost like you could touch your nose to the mat, and then maybe tip back to the floor. And you can try that out a few times. If you're like, meh, my shoulders, my wrists are not having that today, don't worry, I have something for you. You come onto your back, squeeze your knees together, lift your upper back like you're going to do a sit-up. Reach your arms outside one of your legs and push legs and arm together. It's very much the same shape, but upside down. And it will definitely develop the core strength needed for the arm balance. So when you're ready to switch sides in the arm balance, so we're doing the side crow, the revolved crow. So you start in your squat, squeeze your knees together, Twist both elbows outside one knee. Hook, make a shelf. Hands to the floor. Lean. Whew. Try it on the other side if you haven't already. And play around. What's different on one side compared to the other? Can you find that big wrapping, turning action of your ribs? And instead of trying to lift your feet off the floor, can you carefully, slowly lower your nose towards the floor? As you carefully, slowly lower your nose towards the floor, you grip your fingers, kind of like we played with earlier. Whew. Okay, does that feel like enough? When you're ready, come onto your back so we can do a little bit of some counter posing here. And as you come onto your back, have your knees bent and the soles of your feet on the floor. Rest one hand to your heart and one hand to your belly. Notice what's most obvious to you. My guess is that it'll be obvious that you don't typically do something the first time you try it. And even sometimes the 100th time. In general, things that are challenging take great perseverance and steady dedication for us to explore. Whenever you're ready, bring your arms down by your sides. Grip hold of the sides of your sticky mat and lift your hips and spine away from the earth into the bridge pose. If it would feel good to you to roll back down on your exhale and lift up on your inhale, you can repeat by lowering down and lifting up a few times. If you're excited to stay in this shape for a few breaths, you can do so right away. The next time you lift up, hold there for a few breaths. Imagine you're trying to pull with your feet, dragging your mat towards your shoulders. When you're ready, slowly lower back to the earth. Roll to one side and come up to a kneeling position. You'll find it helpful to either fold your mat or use your blanket as padding under your knees. I set mine up so that the edge of it is at where my ankle meets my foot, and that helps my feet find more grounding. Now, find where your hamstrings meet your buttocks and gently take your hands there. Now feel with your hands as you squeeze the muscles underneath. Then take your front ribs and start to bring them towards your pubic bone and your pubic bone towards your front ribs. So the front body goes and it shortens a little bit. Now without doing camel pose, from your knees, start to lean back. So you're going to keep straight. The ribs and the pubic bone move together. There's a little squeeze in the lower buttocks, the upper hamstrings, and a lot of fire in the quads. And then lean forward and try that a couple times. So the tendency is to back bend. That's different. Don't do that today. Instead, stay strong, stay straight, like you're a strong plank of wood as you lean back and then shift forward. Notice how the tendency is to back arch in your ribs and your spine, particularly in your thoracic spine where it meets the lumbar vertebrae. Can you keep that more cinched in from the front So you're really relying more on your quads than on your back bend. All right, so it's not a back bend. This is a quad move. Whew. Then when you finish that last one, if you have 2 blocks, you can grab them. If you don't have 2 blocks, another way to do this is to take the chair in front of you. So you could have the chair in front of you. And what you'll do now is the camel, where you lift your chest and find that back arc shape. But you're going to come into it by leaning back straight first, then pulling into the back bend. All right, so I showed it with the chair if that's what you have available to you. If you happen to have blocks, you can do it with the blocks. So keep that sense of from the front, lean back. Then with hands on blocks or pulling chair, curl into a back bend. When you're ready, sit tall, pause, sit down, and take a few breaths to observe what you're noticing. Repeat one more if you'd like. So either chair in front or blocks by heels. Start with the strength from your front body, your quads, leaning backward. Then from that straight position, arc your spine into a back bend. When you're ready, lift up and out and take a seat on the edge of your blanket. Give yourself a pretty good lift with your blanket. Coming into the Dandasana with your legs extending in front of you. Bend your right knee like you're coming into Baddha Konasana. If it would be helpful, if your knee is suspended off the floor, like it's hanging out like this, then bring the block underneath it. If it's shin and knee is supported on the floor, you might only need a blanket or something smaller. When you're ready, turn your chest towards your straight leg and start to slowly curl your torso towards the straight leg. As you fold towards the straight leg, can you lengthen the front of your spine and the back of your spine equally? For many years, I was taught to lengthen the front of the spine where I was almost doing this pose like a back bend. And now I'm really finding value in lengthening the front and the back more equally. So it's not a back bend. And I'm almost like an ocean wave. The back is starting to get a little bit longer than the front, but the front is still lengthening. As you take a few moments to soak towards that straight leg, notice what's most obvious. Notice what's more subtle. Inhale, slowly lifting up. Change sides. Whichever leg was the bent leg, bring it straight and notice the difference between the two sides as you pause there. Bend the other knee into that Baddha Konasana position. And again, if your knee or shin is suspended off the floor, give it something to be supported by, block or blanket. Turn to the side, straight leg side, and start to extend your spine towards the leg. Could you lengthen equally the front and the back of your body? So for some, the back might naturally feel like it's longer here. And so you might bring more attention to lengthening the front of your body. For others, the front might naturally lengthen, and you might bring more attention to lengthening the back, so they're more towards equal. As you invite softening and ease here, sometimes the most efficient way to do that is to back out a little bit so you're not so close to the edge of intensity. And efficiency is really valued by your body. Oftentimes, without you having to think about it, it does what's most efficient. And sometimes we want to create more options that are all efficient. And so we might do something that's hard so that we can gain more proficiency and efficiency in it and with it. When you're ready, walk your hands up, extend your legs out, and pause for just a moment. You'll roll onto your back again, and if you're going to use a chair under your legs in Shavasana, which I might recommend, you can set that up on your mat right away. And sometimes having the blanket on the chair seat is helpful, depending on how high it is, how high your body is. And if you don't have the chair, no big deal. You can do without and do more classic Shavasana. We'll do one more hip move here. So you'll take and draw your knees in towards your belly, and that will bring the feet more off the chair or towards the front edge of the chair. And then you'll bring your arms inside your knees. And you'll take your hands and you'll reach for your ankles or your feet. And then you might rock a little bit side to side here. So you're moving more from your hips. And you could bring the soles of your feet together and the knees out to the sides. And here the chair could be helpful to support your feet. So it's like Baddha Konasana now. Then you can do a little bit of a spine integrating movement where you take your knees a little bit closer together so they're squeezing your arms a bit. Your hands reach for your ankles. Now curl your tailbone a little towards your heels so you feel the low belly start to engage some. It's a bit of a core engagement. Now imagine that your right shoulder and your right hip are snugly tied together. And the only way for them to move is if they move at exactly the same time and pace. And start to tilt a little to your left. So your right shoulder and right hip will come off the floor exactly at the same pace because they're tied together. And it's like you're almost going to tip and fall onto the floor, but you don't. And then roll with control back to the center. And do the same thing on the other side. Lift your tail a little to get that strength from the lower body. Your left hip and left shoulder are tied together. You'll slowly lean towards the right without letting your leg touch the floor. And slowly with control, come back to the center. Now, by the way, this is a sneaky core move. Core, really deep core muscles, not the superficial core, not your six pack, but the stuff that's way deep inside the body that creates inner stability. And as you go a little side to side, notice how it might be tempting for your hip to lead the twist instead of it staying securely tied to your shoulder. And eventually make your way back to the center. Extend your legs onto the chair or the earth for savasana. And as you come to rest here, take a few moments to scan for what is obvious, to notice what's more subtle. As you drop your bones, allow the pause to receive all of your movement, all of your postures, all of your efforts, so that it might be translated into your body for future reference and availability. So it might become a resource for you in your life off the mat. start to move slowly. Eventually, your movements will grow a little larger. When you're ready, you roll to one side, gradually lifting your way up to seated. As you take a seat on your mat, bring your palms together, thumbs resting in front of your heart. We'll close our time together with one round of Om. Inhale through your nose. Exhale through your mouth. Inhale through your mouth. Slowly bow your head to your heart, honoring yourself, your practice. Thank you so much for joining today.